start? You want to say anything before we get going?
Hold on a second.
Okay, we're live.
Okay, great. I want to welcome everybody. Today's Tuesday, March 8th at 5:47 p.m. This is the Motor Vehicle and Transportation Subcommittee meeting, and we're going to start. We're going to try to get, if we have acting secretary reports and some others on the line. So we want to take some of the easy pass bills first. So we're going to go a little bit out of order.
There he is.
Just to make sure that we make the best use of he and his team's time. So I'd like to start with Al Carr's bill, Delegate Carr's bill, HB 29, vehicle loss failure to pay tolls and penalties. Where are we, Patrick, with that particular bill? I think we're pretty close to good to go, right?
Oh, this bill is a reintroduction. Well, he did offer an amendment that I believe Molly is putting up on the screen, where he's basically requesting that Transportation Authority bid for an accounting firm to perform an audit by the end of the year.
But I'm not there.
But the underlying bill is a bill that we had passed last year that just prohibits, it doesn't prohibit putting a flag on the registration, but it prohibits the immediate suspension of the registration.
Right. We passed this bill last year.
So is there any reason not to pass it this year?
And is it in the same form as last year?
With one amendment.
Well, he's requesting an amendment. The subcommittee doesn't have to go by it.
Right.
And can we quickly just hear what the amendment does that would alter the scope of the bill from this year to last year?
No, it's the amendment just puts the audit on in special section language. It doesn't affect the substance of the underlying legislation.
Okay.
I would say with everything that's going on, I don't think that's a bad amendment.
I don't think so either. I'm just curious about.
But do you know what the fiscal note will be and will it kill the bill?
Well, that's the other
the
question. Does Secretary Ports have a thought about this?
I haven't had a chance to look at the amendment, but just hearing about it, we've already been through one audit, and we've had our joint hearing on that audit. There's another special audit by the DLS or OLA, I should say. Sorry, I'm not sure what this audit would do other than to make us spend money that we don't need to spend because we have OLA looking at it again. It just seems like repetitive and duplicative, and I'm not sure it does anything but spend money for no reason.
Fair enough. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Delegate Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Secretary, when you said there was just an audit done?
Yeah, we OLA did an audit of the MDTA and some of the billing issues. And through that audit, we had a joint audit committee hearing, and we also had a hearing with, I guess, one of the House committees with the House committee. And so we've been through this several times. And again, they just informed us that they want to do another special audit to further dig in, if you will, to some of the contractual agreements and stuff. So we're already being audited again within a 3-year time period. I don't see where getting a consultant to do this would help us at all, other than spend money that, needlessly, because we're already being audited.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a follow-up?
Yes, please go ahead, Delegate.
Thank you. And based on the audit that you had, has the department made any changes?
So the original audit, what it found So let me back up. So the original audit was based on newspaper articles and all the things that were occurring. And when they did their audit, and it's available to read, but we were at the way it came out is that our error rate was 0.00065. So it's a very, very small error rate and well within the KPIs that we have for the original contract. Now, some of the audit issues also pointed towards some of the things that were occurring. Some of that had to do with the transition between one vendor and another vendor and how the toll facilities were synchronized. And when we recognized that error, we went in and we found out all the people who were impacted and we reimbursed them. And so everybody that was impacted by this transition and the transfer of information from one vendor, the old vendor, to the new vendor, and any other any indication of errors, we fixed. Now, what we have found through this process is, I'll take the HATEM for example. We have a HATEM A and a HATEM B plan. In the HATEM A plan, you're only supposed to be able to go through the HATEM bridge and no other facility. The HATEM B plan allows you to go through the HATEM bridge and other facilities in which you would have your credit card on file and it would pull from those other facilities. But if you have the HATEM A plan, which many people choose, you do not put any extra money on. So if you do go through another facility, you get a video toll. They think they're being incorrectly billed. That's not true. They're being billed correctly. And the same thing, if they don't have their transponder mounted correctly, they get an eye toll, what they call an image toll. And they think they're being billed incorrectly, but it could be in their glove compartment, it could be another car, their tag may not be associated with it. So there's a lot of things that are happening on the customer side that they think they're being incorrectly billed, but they are not. And so that's what we're finding. And matter of fact, I shared all that with every legislator, both in the Senate and in the House. I sent all that information out so that you could work with your constituents. I think that was unprecedented. And I did that because I was a former legislator. Ann Healy knows that very well. We were freshman legislators together. And so I sent that out trying to help the legislators through this process to help their constituents, because most of the things that we're seeing are, they don't have a credit card on file. They don't have automatic renewal on their credit card. Their tags aren't associated with it, or they don't have it properly managed. That's what we're finding.
Okay.
What the articles say.
So I know other folks have questions, but it sounds like, Mr. Secretary, what you're saying is that there hasn't been a massive change in policy because the audit didn't show that you needed one, because your error rate was so low and that there was so much customer confusion. I don't want to get into another really long answer with all due respect, but I just want to cut to the chase that
this is a very important
issue. The sense that I get is that the department feels like based on that audit, there wasn't much they needed to change. Is that correct?
So let me say this. First of all, you don't have to call me Mr. Secretary. My name's Jim. You can call me Jim. Very informal. And then secondly, we're not talking about policy changes. We're talking about contractual changes. And we are making some contractual changes, and the audit committee is very aware of that. The BPW is aware of that, and we're getting ready to take those to BPW. We're still in negotiation with the vendors. So there are contractual changes. So that would be the answer to that. It's not policy, it's contractual changes.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Delegate Boyce.
I'm going to quickly follow up on that. And so, Secretary Port, you're saying there was no, nothing in the audit that suggested you needed to, excuse me, something in my throat, other than make the contractual changes. There were no operational changes that you needed to make in order to enhance customer service.
So I'm not going to say that. Like I said, we're making contractual changes. So some of the contractual changes we made is when they bid on it, there was cash tolls. We were going to all electronic tolling. So we needed to make that change. There was another change where we did, and we said this to the audit committee, drop the ball, if you will. We had an employee who was working on the issue of reimbursing customers, ended up retiring because the medical was going away for the state employees, and then that information didn't get transferred. We found that out through the audit and made those changes, and we made the changes based on policy that we would have a better handoff, if you will, in those cases where it would be a problem with an employee retiring. So we have made some policy changes. We have made, obviously, making contractual changes, and we're also changed the web. There's a lot of changes we did do.
Sure. So, I mean, those to me are all some type of customer service based, but I don't want to hold it up. So the next question I have is, I would be okay with not accepting the amendment only if in your administration that an audit, given the issues and given the contractual changes, that an audit would be done by you at least yearly until all of these kinks continue to be worked out.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry. I thought you were done, so I'm sorry.
I am done, sir. I'm done.
Okay. So we do have internal audits that we should be performing, but we also have the OLA audit from DLS that they'll be doing too. So we are.
So is that going to be done on a yearly basis?
So our audits are, we have audits that we do on a yearly basis. Yes.
Okay.
We can certainly do that. We do them all the time, and we have our KPIs that we perform on the vendors, not annually, but constantly. So we're looking at that too. And again, we're making a contractual change to that so that we can better enhance that.
Can you define constantly? I don't know what that means.
So we're always looking at any anomalies. So the way that the software is set up, it looks for anomalies on the vendor side. But if we see anomalies also, then we pick them up. So for example, we had a situation in a toll area where the rubber matting was flapping around, if you will, is a best way to explain it. And we picked it up, MDTA picked it up quicker than the vendor did, recognized that it was double counting, if you will, or counting more times for the axles. And so we notified the vendor, had the vendor shut down the toll booth. The toll booth was a shutdown. And then we went back and looked at the customers who were impacted and reimbursed those customers. So it's a combination of working, the vendors doing it and us doing it at a constant basis.
So when you say constantly, you essentially mean real time.
Every day, real time.
Real time. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Delegate Foley.
Thank you. Hold on. 1 second. Am I on? Okay, sorry. I'm looking at something else on my screen here. So I think that that the audit that you were referring to was the one done in September of 2021. Is that correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. So I looked at that audit, and isn't it so that they identified a number of several issues regarding tolling errors and duplicate billings and charges for incorrect vehicles. And there were a lot of those. It also, I believe that in those hearings that MDTA testified that they were getting 15,000 calls daily related to Easy Pass issues. And so when you say that you've made some changes, it seems like these are pretty serious issues that were raised. And I just wonder if, what's the complaint rate now? Has that gone down? Do you have any sense of what that is now? And if so, what changes, 15,000 calls a day is huge. Are there changes being made to address those issues?
Mm-hmm. So let me back up, if you will. I obviously can't go through the entire audit because that audit identified about four things that actually we gave to the auditors. Okay, we said these are the things that we found, and if you look at the audit, they didn't do a statistical analysis on that. like they usually do. So we gave them the information and we're going through that as we did. But what happens is, again, people that don't have their credit card on file, don't have renewable, don't have their Easy Pass mounted, because of these articles, they feel like they're being inappropriately billed. So what happens is, and I went through this with some of the reporters and showed them, they have a reporter said that the guy had it properly mounted. It wasn't reading, swore it was properly mounted. We took a picture of his vehicle and said, show us where it's mounted on your windshield. He said, it's not on my windshield, it's above my visor. Well, if it's above the visor, it's being blocked by the roof of the car. But that did not stop the reporters from putting that on TV. That increased our volume of calls. And then we had another one recently where a young lady said that she had an Easy Pass. It was mounted properly. It was she had a commuter route and everything else. We looked up her account. She did not have a credit card on file because the credit card company canceled her credit card. She did not have her tags on her account. She did not have a commuter rate. Her commuter rate was canceled by her in 2018, and so on and so forth. So what happens is these reporters put these articles on TV and in the paper, and then we get flooded with a bunch of calls because of misinformation. And I went through that with the reporters. I showed them the information. They said they wouldn't have gone forward with those articles had they known. But the problem is they didn't check with us first. And so, yes, that increased our calls. Our call volumes are going down. We do have more customer agents. That's another change we made, by the way, put more customer agents on them. But the biggest problem is that we had a backlog that nobody anticipated because of COVID. That's what started the snowball going. Not just COVID, but we were in the middle of a transition between our vendor we had for 15 years and the new vendor. So between the two, we ended up with a large backlog, which again, in the RFP, the vendors did not anticipate and we did not either. So that's the biggest problem we have right now. And that's what's causing the big call volume.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, but and certainly understand, and I know it's gotten a little bit better, but but I also have some information from OLA as of February 18th that they've been contacted about waste, fraud and abuse on their waste, fraud and abuse hotline. And if I could just, I don't want to take up too much time, but there still are, for example, 22 complainants stated that they were charged for a toll they didn't incur. 19 stated that MDTA's customer service quality was poor. Well, that's a judgment call. 17 stated they were charged an incorrect rate. 14 had payment related issues, that their payments weren't properly credited, and 13 had billing related issues that they said were wrong. Now, you know, this was what was reported to OLA. So I think, you know, I mean, is it fair to say that a lot of these problems still persist?
Well, I would say the perception is that they still persist, yes. But what I would say is we had a talk with OLA last week. And I asked them, so first of all, let me back up. The reason they did the original audit was because of a fraud and abuse accusation. They determined that that was not true. There was no fraud, there was no abuse. And so then secondly, people again say they're being misbilled, but I just gave you examples of where they're not. And most every case that we've had, and there have been very, very, very few that are different, but most every case we've had has dealt with a credit card, a tag not being on their account, or them not having the Easy Pass in their vehicle. So yes, they report it as fraud. And I asked OLA, I said, when you get these, please give us the account, please give us the name, and we will go through and we will find out the accurate information and report it to OLA, because we're very, very confident that nearly every one of these is being billed correctly. There are some anomalies, I will admit, where, you're dealing with a photograph and photographic equipment that then reads it. And so there are some misreads because of the amount of different tags we have. I had it happen to me, not at MDTA, but in a city in Prince George's County, where they sent me a bill. I wasn't anywhere near there. They showed a black minivan, and it had the same tag number as me, except my vehicle is a white Ford F-250. So it does happen. It does happen in every system, but they are very, very few anomalies. Most of it is customer not having the things that I just mentioned prior.
Okay, can I pause
Thank
this
you.
for a second? Somebody has an alarm or a phone. or
Yeah,
something
it's
going
my
off in the
wife.
background.
Hold
It
on.
is driving me absolutely
Me too.
insane. I mean, it is really driving me insane. So whoever that is, if they could turn it off, I would really
The
appreciate
secretary
it.
just said that was his wife.
Oh, okay.
He's got to take care of it.
I can't see her right now. I can't find her, and it's an Apple, and I don't know how to use Apple. I'm sorry, I'm a Macintosh guy. If I see her running through the room, I'll definitely stop it because it's driving me crazy too.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find her. Drive me nuts. Hey, can you turn your computer off? Can you turn that noise off on your computer? All right, I'm getting there. Sorry about that. I can't stand it either. It's driving me nuts.
Yeah. Okay, Delegate Parrott, I think you were. Delegate Foley, are you finished?
Thank goodness.
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, I think Delegate Parrott was next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just noticing that this bill is also introduced in the Senate. Looks like they had their hearing at the beginning of January and have taken no action. Jim, do you know what the status is in the Senate?
No, I do not know. One of the things that we had talked to Delegate Carr about is that, and I appreciate him trying to look out for the customer. One of the things we found is that if we're able to work with the customer earlier on, they have a better benefit of paying their bill. When we don't have the ability to contact the customer earlier on, their bills mount up. And as you know, the registration is done every 2 years. So they could be 2 years of billing and we won't be able to flag their vehicle until later. Whereas if we were able to do it earlier, they would have an earlier indication and they would be able to better settle their debt. And who knows why, but a lot of times it's their credit card that ran out. Or
Let's hold on to that for a second. Patrick, do you have an answer to Delegate Parrott's question? Do we have any idea why? Are they just waiting to see what we do over in the House, you think? Or does anybody have any inside info on what the status of the Senate bill is?
Well, the Senate bill, Delegate Parrott's correct. It was heard in, I think, January 18th. And they've taken no action since then. I don't know what they've done, whether they've talked about it in subcommittee or whatever. But they know we passed it last year. So I don't think they're waiting on us.
Okay, Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you. Mr. Ports,
Sure.
Delegate Foley brought up February 18th about some complaints. When, I can't remember, I can't get on the screen with the information, but what date did MDTA start not collecting the penalties? What date? That was in late February, wasn't it?
No, so it goes back to COVID. I'm sorry. What you say?
No, you recently, put the notice out that the penalties were being waived.
Yeah. It's 24th. The 24th.
The 24th. So certainly, what complaints were coming in by the 18th would have certainly changed by the 24th if there were penalties involved in some of those complaints. We all got hammered with a number of things, and I know many of us were advocating to waive those penalties, and I think that should have taken care of some of the problem right there as far as what went in there.
It did. it definitely drove down call volume and let's just say calm the waters a bit. I think it was a good move to go ahead and waive them for 9 months. That gives people plenty of time to pay. We have postal office problems, of course, like everybody else. So there's a lot of factors. So we did take that action. The board took that action, I should say.
Yeah, I appreciate it because we had legislation to do it, but you beat us to the punch by the.
Well, in that case, delegate, let me say this. So MDTA is an authority, and an authority by statute means basically it has its own taxing power. Now, we don't call it taxing power, it's tolling, right? And that's the only way we get money. We don't get money from the general fund, and we don't get money from the TTF or the Transportation Trust Fund. So it is basically operating like a business, and we have a trust agreement. And the trust agreement is through bondholders, people who pledge their capital, their monies to give us money so that we can go out and get bonds and leverage our funding. But at the end of the day, it's basically shareholder monies that we're talking about. So I don't want you to take this wrong, but if there's any legislative, and they call it interference, this is what the bond agencies call it. If there's any legislative interference, what the bond agencies say is that it could negatively impact our bond rating, which increases our interest rate, which makes it more expensive for us to borrow money. And so that's a really important factor. So it's better if our board does it than if the legislature does it.
I agree with you 100%. I just say that things did improve late in February. I guess was try and keep it short as possible.
Let me interject here. Are you finished, Delegate Jacobs?
Yeah, I'm finished.
Okay, so here are the questions that I have. If someone has an Easy Pass and the battery is dead on their Easy Pass, or for whatever reason the Easy Pass is broken, but the Easy Pass is linked to their registration, hence their tag number, then should they be getting a video toll for the cost of using that toll, or should there be penalties on top of that?
So they will get a video, they could get a video toll. However, when they contact us, we do the research on their Easy Pass or their transponder, I'm sorry, and then we reimburse them. And
Hey, Jim, could I?
Go ahead, Will. Oh, Will Pines is on.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Sorry I had to interrupt you there. I wanted to clarify one point. So for the record, my name is Will Pines, and I'm the acting executive director for the MDTA. So I just want to make a distinction that if somebody has a valid Easy Pass account where they have funds on the account, they're not negative, they have an auto replenishment to where they regularly have funds established. If they don't have their transponder in their vehicle, or it's not mounted, or the battery's dead, whatever reason, they do not receive a video toll. They receive what's called an image toll or an eye toll. The difference is an image toll is charged at the $4 rate. If, like, let's take Fort McHenry Tunnel as an example. Maryland Easy Pass is $3, an image toll is $4, and a video toll is $6. The only people that receive civil penalties are individuals who incur video tolls. Video tolls are different than image tolls. Image tolls, we are able to associate the image of the license plate to the active Easy Pass account and still charge that customer through their funded Easy Pass account. If an Easy Pass customer both does not have a transponder read and they do not have an active Easy Pass account because it's unfunded, they don't have auto replenish, what are the different reasons that they could be inactive, then they would incur video tolls because they technically are moved out of an Easy Pass status and into a video status when they don't have funds.
Okay, so here, I mean, we have like 3 or 4 bills to kind of go through to see what makes the most sense to pass and or work on. But I will tell you, and I've mentioned this a couple times, I don't want any special treatment. I don't want anybody looking into my account because I'm a delegate. I want to make sure I've made that, Mr. Pines, you've heard me say that twice now to you, right?
Mhm.
I'm holding in my hand 19 violations for myself. I spoke to the office on March 2nd, and I have an Easy Pass. You can see in the photos in my car, you can see the Easy Pass on my dashboard. I have an active account. I have a credit card on file, and I paid $99 to get me theoretically current with the tolls that I used, but they wanted a lot more money for, I guess, civil penalties. Now, I have the Easy Pass mounted. It's associated with my registration. So it seems like when I go through one of these that somebody should be picking up my registration, cross-referencing it and going, oh, okay, he has an Easy Pass. I have a credit card on file. Every couple of months, I get an email saying we're doing this for your credit card or that for your credit card. So I'm concerned because like what I'm hearing is not matching up with my particular situation. And I personally think that the Easy Pass is bad, broken, or the battery's dead. I don't know that for a fact, but last year I did ask about that. Do you have a program? And that is, if somebody has an Easy Pass and it's not working, but you know they have an Easy Pass based on their registration, are you not reaching out to them and saying, hey, for some reason your Easy Pass isn't working, we should send you a new Easy Pass, or we should figure out whether you're not mounting it properly or not. But you can see in the photos, it's like right in the middle of my windshield, exactly where it says to mount. So I have a lot of great concerns because this is just me. And I had 19 pages, well over, asked to pay $475 in fines, and then said, well, we can cut you a deal and do it for $3 per fine instead. And I'm like, no, I have an Easy Pass. I pay my Easy Pass. I'm not interested in paying any civil penalties or anything. I'll pay you for the tolls that I used, but that's it. So I'm not sure where this goes or what happens, but I'm telling you, like, I had this conversation on March 2nd of the year 2022 at 2:40 p.m. I waited on hold for 4.75 minutes, which is great because it was a short hold time, but I have the notes and I have all the confirmation information. I have all the, and Mr. Pines, I told you that this was going to happen and this is how it's happened. And I didn't ask for any special treatment because I wanted to know what the average person is going through. And I'm told, well, has to go to a special appeal committee to see if we're willing to let go of the civil penalties or any other fees.
Well, if I could, delegate, as you requested, we didn't reach out to take care of your account. You wanted to go through the normal process. But as Jim mentioned, on February 24th, the MVTA board passed the customer assistance plan, which includes a civil penalty waiver component of it. It has a grace period where customers can pay video tolls all the way out until November 30th. And so while I can't comment on the specific circumstances of your account, I don't have any idea. You asked me not to look into it. I didn't. I don't know what exactly the issues are there. But what I can say is that at this point, because of the waiver program, your question initially was, where should you focus your attention, right? Which bills are meritorious of your attention? There are several bills, House bills, that propose various different forms of civil penalty waivers. One that has been cross-filed with Senate Bill 59. That bill has had a lot of amendments made to it that focuses the language of the civil penalty waivers specifically to align with what the MDTA board action has been. As Jim mentioned, other actions, legislative actions that could violate our trust agreement would be very problematic to the agency. And so, having the attention focused on bills that align with the civil penalty program that we have already in place is where I think the committee would be most fruitful.
And I know you're not looking for any special treatment, and quite frankly, I appreciate that. I was the same way when I was in, but I had two Easy Passes, one for my delegate and then one for work, because I didn't want none of my constituents could go through free every day, so I didn't want to go through through free every day. So I had a separate one, but we will look into your account. And now you went through the regular process. I appreciate that. I always did that too. So I understand that concept, but I do want to dig in and find out what the actual problem was or is, because it's important that we understand exactly what may be going on with your account. So I would like to look into it.
I appreciate it, but this is what I would ask. Again, I don't want any special
Oh,
treatment.
we won't give you special treatment.
No. Hear me out. I don't want you to look into it. I'm asking you not to look into my account. The reason being is I was promised a phone call in a couple of weeks, and I want to see if I get that phone call. But I don't want anybody looking in or poking into the account. I want to see exactly what the average person goes through, because this is what we're dealing with, right? There's a lot of people that are saying this is happening. I happen to be one of them. But I want to see what the whole process is. I want to see if I get a call back in 2 weeks saying, well, we sent this to the appeal board and the appeal board said that you're right and you don't have to pay anything. We've waived all the citation.
Okay.
The civil citation information. So please don't look into it. I don't want 70% of the process. I want to see what 100% of this process is and what every single other people is going through. I appreciate it. Okay, Del.
I do want to assure you, again, just to reiterate, I do want to assure you, your civil penalties already are waived by the board action on the 24th.
Okay.
And that's for everybody. So it's not just you.
Right.
Right. They wanted an additional, I think, $4 per penalty. So they said that they waived the $25, but they wanted an additional $4 per penalty. And that was the deal that was offered to me.
So let me just clarify. I don't know the specifics of your case. Like we talked about, $4 is the image toll rate.
Mm-hmm.
So typically what that's telling me is it's likely that there's some issue with a transponder read and that it read the license plate instead of the transponder. And that's why they're offering the image toll. That would be consistent with normal practices.
And that's probably correct, because they do have a transponder in the mail to me, because I said, you know, the fact that the transponder isn't working that's not my fault. You can see the transponder on the window, the windshield. So I asked them to send me a new transponder, but I don't want to take up all the time on me. This is not my bill. I'm just trying to work through all of the issues. So Delegate Jacobs, do you still have your hand up, or was that from before? Okay. Delegate Boyce, do you have your hand up new, or is that?
I do have my hand up, and for the reasons that you just stated, and for the reasons that my niece got a book size stack of bills in the mail 2 years after having tolls, I'd like to move this bill without the amendments, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I have a question.
Can I second that?
Okay, there's a first and a second. Discussion, Delegate Healy.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the right bill for this, but all this discussion we've had is there seems to be an issue that the transponders don't let you know when they stop working.
Exactly.
I mean, if they had, if there was a light that went on, or it emitted a sound or something that lets you know that this is not functioning anymore, waiting till you get tickets and owe money and have to go through this whole terrible process doesn't make any sense. Have you fixed that issue yet?
So what we're doing, just so you're aware, is the MDTAs, the transponders that we purchase typically have a battery life of about 8 years. And you may recall, anybody who has a transponder years back had one that was kind of square shaped, a little bit bigger. And in 2018, 2019, we actually did a replacement program where we mailed out new transponders to all existing customers that had aged transponders, and they got the smaller rectangular ones. Going forward, we expect to do in the future a similar replacement program for transponders that are aging. And that's typically how we've handled that.
So this did come up last year with this very bill. And I asked that same question. Do you not have a program that identifies you know, when you get 3 or 4 Easy Pass violations and you run the registration, you go, oh my God, that person's got a tag. That person has an Easy Pass. They have a registered Easy Pass to this registration, to this vehicle with this tag number. And look, you can see in the picture that the Easy Pass is there. You need to have something, and maybe we need to put it or amend it into a bill,
Yeah.
but you need to have something that basically says, reach out and ping the customer and say, hey, we're sending you a new Easy Pass. There appears to be something wrong with your Easy Pass. That is a whole.
Yeah, we are doing that as well. So our prior system it had notices for if you have a negative balance on your account or if your credit card was expired, but having a notice related to image tolls was not something that was in our system. That is a feature that, based on feedback like yours, we are adding so that customers would get an email alert when we observe that they have multiple image tolls. And that would occur from if they don't mount it and they're holding it up to the window, or they have a battery issue, or they just are leaving their transponder in their spouse's car, or whatever the circumstances, because there's a lot of different reasons that image tolls are generated. The battery issue, while that sounds like it's your case, it's not that prevalent of a case because we did go through the replacement program within the last 3 to 4 years.
Right. And in my particular case, I don't know if it's the battery. It could have, when they sent me a new one, it could have gotten jostled in the mail and it could have been broken from the time I put it on. I don't know. But I do have a question for
Excuse me, Mr.
Patrick.
Mr. Chairman, are we not, don't we have a motion on the floor?
We do, and we're discussing it.
Okay,
Can you give me
okay.
1 second? I'm going
Yeah,
to
I
get right
think
to you.
I guess the discussion was whether we should amend the bill to require that they have some kind of a system to let people know when their transponders aren't working.
Right. So here's my question to Patrick. Given this bill and the other 3 bills, it seems to me that Delegate Carr's bill stands on its own, and there's no issue with passing Delegate Carr's bill in the same fashion that we passed it last year. And because we still have another Delegate Foley bill and we have a Delegate Krim bill. And so the list kind of goes on and on. Is there anything we're getting into with this bill? And then next is going to be Delegate Foley.
What do you mean? Is there anything we're getting into?
As far as overlapping with other bills that we have. I mean, I think it's.
No, this bill stands on its own.
That's what I thought. Okay, Delegate Foley.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to argue in favor of the motion that we pass the bill as it is, because I'm sorry, but hearing these responses, I've just got to be honest with you, gentlemen, make me even angrier about what's happening at Easy Pass. It's the media's fault. These complaints are few and far between. It's, you know, there's this issue or that issue. There's a problem that has to be fixed. And I appreciate that you don't want the legislature to pass bills or laws that impact your operations. But I just think that, you know, this system is really broken and there needs to be some changes. And I would like to see this bill passed without the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. And just to get to Mr. Pines' comment, this bill doesn't affect, at least to the best of my knowledge, will have no effect on bonding related issues. If anybody has anything to say about that before we vote on this bill, but that's not my read of it. It doesn't seem like there's any bonding authority issues with this bill whatsoever.
True.
Okay, so we have a first and a second on the bill without Delegate Carr's amendment. So the bill, as it was originally introduced, clean. Is there any further discussion on HB 029? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Great. HB 029 passes. Thank you, everyone. Let's move to Patrick. I was thinking Delegate Foley's bill, HB 335. Would be next. What do you think makes the most sense given the conversations that we're undergoing?
Whatever your pleasure.
Okay, let's go to HB 335, Maryland Transportation Authority, Easy Pass Dispute of Charges and Fees. Obviously in the same family, but not the same. Okay, well, you can read the synopsis, right? The way that this is definite is it requires the terms and conditions of the Maryland Transportation Authority for Easy Pass accounts to all persons to dispute any charge or fees to the person's EasyPass account within at least 3 years of the charge or fee is posted to the account. Patrick, do you want to explain a little bit further maybe, and let's discuss?
Well, there were two amendments discussed. One's from the sponsor, Delegate Foley. She drops it down from 3 years to 1 year. And then the chair and I had discussed possibly an amendment to put a 1 year sunset on the bill so that the committee could revisit the issue next year.
And see what progress has been made. Okay, so let's have a conversation. As far as bonding, any concerns with bonding and bond ratings on this bill?
Yeah, the MDTA is not reasonably able to estimate any revenue impacts from this at this point. So we did not include that in the bill. Historically, candidly, if a customer does reach out to us, we do have their statements. I think as we've mentioned to Delegate Foley, the way that the bill is written, if you go online and you check your account, we save statements for many years back. They're available for all customers electronically from their account. What's not there is the native data in our system. And so that there's a cost to it, but this is not really expected to impact our bondholders materially. Where we do have a little bit of an issue, MDTA, EasyPass is a brand that's used across multiple states and multiple tolling agencies. MDTA does not own the EasyPass brand. That's actually controlled by what's called the IAG. And the IAG has a requirement that the 120 days is applied for out-of-state transactions. So we would not be able to comply with that agreement for those transactions. If the out-of-state customer pings us, we would be required to reply and provide the information and only hold the information for a dispute for 120 days for out-of-state.
So are you saying that your system only allows you to hold disputes from out-of-state EasyPass holders for 120 days?
Correct. Well, let me make sure I'm clear. So no, it's if a Maryland customer drives out of state and incurs a toll, that tolling agency will ding MDTA for the toll that was incurred in their system. And because of the way the transaction systems are set up in that agreement with the IAG, we are not permitted to dispute beyond that with that out-of-state agency.
So what happens? Do you just pay it and then seek payment from the Maryland EasyPass holder?
That's correct. If we end up resolving the toll with the customer ourselves, the MDTA is held liable for that toll.
And just to be clear, that's not our policy. That is the interagency group member policy. So, you have transponders all across well, not all across the nation, but mostly up on the East Coast and then a little further west. It's like a clearinghouse, if you will, for all the agencies that have EasyPass. So it's their policy. It's 120 days.
Well, the other question that I would have is switching from 3 years to 1 year, just given the COVID situation, the way that backlogged, is a year enough? I don't know. I want to.
I think, I'll be honest with you. I think changing it to 1 year, other than out of state, we have no control over the IAG. We're just one member. You may have to put something in there about that, but I don't think 1 year hurts us that much. Like you said, Delegate, we have a year backlog. We're almost through the backlog. I think we're at 99% for EasyPass and 91% for video tolls that are cleared. So once we get through this backlog, I think we're going to see a lot better response on everything, and we'll be able to handle most of the customer issues. And I think we're getting better with that and with the transponders. So I don't think the 1 year is going to a killer. But I do think it's a good idea to have a 1 year sunset, because then y'all can come back and look at it again.
Okay, I'd like this discussion from the subcommittee. The reason I asked about the 1 year is I'm like, is that enough? I don't know. So Delegate Healy, please.
Okay, thank you. If you could just quickly outline what the dispute procedure is. How far can people go? If they go through your process, all the way through your process, at the end of that process, if they're still dissatisfied, if they don't think they were treated fairly, do they have the option of going to court?
Yes, they do. They have the option to go to court. It comes in on their NOTD and they can request a court hearing.
What is that NOTD? What does that mean?
I'm sorry, notice of toll due. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Delegate Foley.
Yes, I have a question of Patrick. The chairman's amendment would sunset but you said something about after a year. You said something about reviewing it. So is there a provision in there that the legislature would come back and review the policy about whether or not to renew the 1 year time frame? Is that basically what the amendment says? Because I haven't seen the amendment, so I'm asking.
Well, that's a concept amendment. That was just discussion.
Okay, but is that the concept that?
Well, the concept is that if we put a 1 year sunset on, then any of 188 members of the General Assembly can come in and put in a bill to extend that sunset
I see.
review. So anyone can spark the review.
I see. Okay, thank you.
And I will say, Delegate Foley, often we put a sunset on bills because we're just not sure, when there's an issue and we want to address it in the short term, we're not sure if it's the right long-term policy. So oftentimes we'll come back in a year and another year and renew. And then sometimes after the second or third renew, we just take the sunset off completely and it becomes permanent law,
Yeah.
which may end up being this case. We may end up, if we pass this bill, the way it stands with the sunset, we might come back next year, extend the sunset for a year, and then we might come back and just remove the sunset altogether and make it permanent law.
Yeah, thank
Or you
you.
might
Thank you,
decide you
Mr.
don't need
Chair.
it
I
anymore and just let
understand.
the bill die.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry.
understand. I understand. Thank you.
Okay.
Delegate Healy's bill is a good example of that it was a bill that had
Yes.
previously sunset, that's now kind of come back around again, that really didn't have negative consequences.
Right. So the only concern, do we have any more questions by the subcommittee? The only concern that I have is that given everything that's happened with COVID, it seems taking COVID out of the situation, it seems like 1 year is great. Given the situation we've been in with COVID, I kind of feel like with everything that I've gotten and other people have gotten is a year and a long enough extension. I think that's a legitimate question to have a conversation about. And we can leave it at 1 year as the.
Mr. Chair, can we just say 18 months?
That we would do.
If people are that concerned, we can say 18 months, but
Do you
We're
share
not
my-
here in
do you share the
18
same
months.
concern, Delegate Boyce?
Right.
Do you share my same concern?
Yes,
Please take
and I share that concern based on the last bill, in that my niece got a stack of bills from the last 2 years that was $600 at $2,500 penalties. And so I don't know for other people whether or not those things are still coming, or if they have yet to receive them.
But we
Could
do
I
have
put-
the waiver process.
That's the scary part for me. If the secretary and Mr. Pines believes that a year is enough, and the sunset is put in place in a timely enough manner that if there is still a problem, and if God willing and the creek don't rise, that we're still here next year, somebody could put in the bill to extend the sunset. Or I think to Patrick's point, if we don't need it and all is well and the vendor is doing what it's supposed to do and these little issues are hammered out, then we don't need it.
If I could offer 2 points why I think that 1 year is probably sufficient, and I understand why Delegate Foley had suggested that. Just to be clear, the 120 days is from the point when the transaction posts to the customer's account. And so this is not the backlog. The issue with the backlog is we have a transaction date when the customer actually went through our facility, and then a much later posting date due to the deferral that was created from the backlog. And so
I understand that, Mr. Pines, and because my other issue that I addressed with Delegate Foley was that then if you don't have an easy pass and you do get the bill, the issue is then it's the later date that you're actually mailed the bill. So now we're talking about 3 different timelines, right? And so by the time they do receive it, for those who are unbanked and go through the easy pass tolls, you're getting it even at a later date.
Yeah, so let's just be clear too. So this bill is talking about disputes for easy pass transactions.
That's correct.
Which is different than video tolls.
Right.
The 3 dates with the video tolls, I know there's a lot of frustration about the duration on the mailing, but it's important to understand the way that we do that. So the first step is to take the transaction date and provide a posting date. At that point, when it posts to a customer's account, if the customer pays a video toll online before we mail, the customer receives a 15% discount on the toll because they paid it before we incurred the cost of postage and mailing. Then it has a separate mailing date, as you noted. So there's a benefit to many customers in the period between when it posts and mails. So I just want to make sure that was clear.
Sure.
But the reason I'm saying we don't need more than a year is just simply we're not going back many years back to the pandemic because we're talking about from the posted date.
Understood.
And we have the waiver in place now. So it already takes care of the people. They won't be getting the civil penalties because of the waiver that was passed by the board.
So you're saying a year is sufficient and that a sunset would be beneficial.
Yeah.
And that keeps us, I would say, the General Assembly and the subcommittee kind of insured in case it's not.
Correct. And I would
Delegate
say,
Foley, I don't want to speak for Delegate Foley. I'm sorry.
yeah, the waiver process is in place for 9 months. So 9 months of that year that you're talking about is covered.
But the year would begin July 1st, Delegate Foley? What?
You know what?
October.
If I
It would
could,
be
Mr. Chairman, can I?
It says
Um,
October 1st.
Yeah, I think
October
it's
1.
October 1st. I think
Mhm.
that's correct.
Unless it's an emergency bill, which it's not, it would be
Yeah,
October 1.
It's not an emergency bill. No, I think it's October 1st. And
We can do June 1st.
oh, I'm sorry, June 1st. Is that in the
No.
bill?
No,
No, okay.
Patrick's saying we could do June 1st if we want.
We could do June 1st. So the other point, if I could, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, please.
and Delegate Boyce and I have discussed her concern about from the time that the customer knows about the, receives the mailing. I think
I'm satisfied with.
Okay, okay, good, because I think that's a little hard to determine. And the other thing is, I just want to make one point though, which is that I'm fine with the sunset, but I think in a year when we come back and look at this, and I intend to do that, I think there's another issue too for the MDTA, and that is it's not just, these penalties that are backlogged and these charges that are backlogged that are being put on. There's also a customer service issue that has to be addressed. And I think part of the problem is that people have had a very difficult time getting through to Easy Pass. Now, to MDTA. Now, it seems as if that has eased, some of the discussion here. And I hope that's true. But I do think that, we need to look at that too, because that's part of this problem. It's not just the charges. It's also, I can't get through to anyone to resolve the charges or to take care of my dispute. So I just want to make that point while you're here, that that's another area that needs to be addressed as well.
We're
Yeah, one thing that I would say-
increasing our customer service agents by about 200. We're doubling them. So we are addressing that. And that modification is coming through the BPW very shortly.
Also, Delegate Foley, if it's any consolation to anybody, or any of the millions of people on YouTube watching us streaming this, for those millions of Marylanders, 6.2 million of them, When I did call a couple of weeks ago, I do note that it was just under a 5-minute wait, which I think is reasonable. That's actually,
Yeah.
compared to what
So-
we've heard, it's a great step in the right direction. Okay,
Yeah,
so what I'm
delegate-
hearing from the subcommittee is that
Let it go.
we are okay with moving this bill forward. We are okay with the amendment to drop it from 3 years to 1 year. Is there anything else that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, can we be clear on the sunset date as well?
Yes,
When would that be? So if we're moving, and what I also heard the delegate talk about is this bill goes into effect October 1st. I heard Patrick potentially stating that maybe we would start it July 1st, give it a
Yeah, June
year, but
1st.
then when would the sunset be in place so that we're not?
so typically, well, I think that, Patrick, you said June 1st, right? Not July 1st?
June 1st or emergency?
If I
Okay,
could
well-
comment on that, as Jim mentioned, we do have to go to the Board of Public Works if this were to pass, we do have to have our vendor add additional storage to save the data. And so it would be a bona fide emergency that we would have to get procured and approved through the BPW approval. So not that we can't do it. I just want to make sure it's clear that June 1st, by the time this would get approved, we would have a very short time frame to actually implement the added storage requirements to save the data.
Okay. Delegate Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we need to put anything in to recognize that they are bound by easy passes rules with respect to other states?
That's a Patrick question.
We could limit it to Maryland residents.
But isn't it Maryland residents
That
in
probably
other
wouldn't work.
states?
That probably wouldn't work, no.
Yeah, no, you're right, Sarah, it wouldn't.
I mean, I think there's language we can work out. I just think we need to recognize that.
We could hold it and work on some language.
Okay. I wanted to move this bill out tonight, but given that we're very, very close, and I want to thank the subcommittee for going through so much work on these. We still have a few more, so but I know this is hard, and I do want to say I know that these easy pass issues have come to a head, and so the subcommittee is putting an enormous amount of extra time that we would not normally do on these bills, just because it's timely and it's very concerning. Okay, so we're going to.
Mr. Chairman, can I just confirm that we're talking about, before we get to Delegate Love's issue, a 1-year sunset, 1-year look back, and a June 1st effective date?
That's what we're discussing.
Okay.
That's what we're discussing. Delegate Foley, do you have anything before we?
Yeah, just to Delegate Love's point, I think a lot of these charges that are a problem are from out of state. And what I heard from MDTA say was that there is a 120-day limit that they have on data from out of state for them, but that doesn't. But so there may be charges that are in dispute that are from out of state, and then they said that if they can't resolve those, MDTA then just pays them. So I don't know, without having data on how many charges are from out of state, how many are from in-state, I don't know whether that's something that we should consider or not, because I think it could. I don't want to render the extended time moot. That's my only point.
Mr. Pines or Mr.
So we sent a letter to Kumar, and it's based on this bill, and it does give a lot of the information that you're talking about right now. If you like, we can. It was sent on March 3rd, so it's a little dated now, right? So we could either send this out to you again, to the subcommittee members, or we could, based on this conversation, see if we can put together any extra information along with Patrick, if you like.
That would be great if you could do that. But also, if you have the data there, could you just tell us, is there a percentage in and out? Just so we have a general idea, and then we could narrow it down and get the rest of the data that you want to present to us also.
Let's see. Well, some of this was based on a 3-year, so storage capacity would be about $350,000. And it says further, while the terms and conditions prevent official disputes beyond 120 days, MDTA always encourages customers to check their statements each month. Let's see. Provides ample dispute time. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't.
That's okay. Just
Some of the information you get, there's some of the information you talked about, it doesn't address because it's new. But it does have the information about the 120 days in here for sure. And the the IAG interagency group that we talked about. It's got some of that information in there also.
All right. If it's possible to get the data that Delegate Foley was asking for, just update the letter and send it to us. In the meantime, we're going to work on those pieces. Patrick, are we clear? Do we have everything that is the will of the subcommittee?
For now, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Again, thank you very much. The next bill so we're going to hold that bill. We have a general idea of what we're going to move forward, hopefully in the next voting session or next week. The only ones that I wanted to move back to as the last of the Easy Pass MDTA are, Patrick, maybe we can talk about Delegate Healy's HB 38 as well as Delegate Hornberger's HB 582. I know that there's some overlap and they are similar. How much do we need to discuss this? What else do we need to do on Easy Pass on those two?
Well, start with Delegate Healy's bill, which as MDTA mentioned earlier, is essentially a reintroduction of the 2018 bill that allowed a clawback from the Central Collections Unit in DBM. And the bill's Delegate Healy's bill this year is exactly the same, except for it doesn't have a sunset clause. Now, you mentioned Delegate Hornberger's bill, that's House Bill 582, also on the list. That has very similar provisions to Delegate Healy's bill, as well as doing some other things. One of the other things it does is it provides for a payment plan, and it also requires MDTA to take certain payments at the toll booths, which is very expensive. The Senate has a cross file of Hornberger's bill that they actually have on the floor now. They have taken out that very expensive piece. There's still some fiscal costs in it. It's been held on the floor today. So I think the idea was to give the subcommittee some homework and take a look at Delegate Healy's bill, House Bill 38, Delegate Hornberger's bill, House Bill 582, and then the cross file for Delegate Hornberger is Senate Bill 59. You might want to take a look at that. And part of the package here, we sent out a reprint of Senate Bill 59 as it looks with the committee amendments, to take a look at what they did there and get some ideas, and then they'll hold and take a look at it again next week, when we'll have a better idea of what the Senate came out with, or if they came out with anything.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like that we should do that. I will say Delegate Healy's bill, unless I'm missing something, I mean, I think we should hold it just because we don't absolutely know, but I think we're probably pretty fair and clear to pass Delegate Healy's bill as it stands. But let's have a quick conversation and then figure out where we're going to go. I see Delegate Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong. What I think I hear you saying is, on its own, without the sunset, Delegate Healy's bill is fine. And given that HB 582 is similar, if we were to add the payment option, not at the tolls, but the payment plan option to Delegate Healy's bill, we'd have a pretty complete bill.
There's more to it, but we could do it that way eventually.
It's a thought. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good thought. I mean, the other thing we could do is hold them both, or we could pass Delegate Healy's bill and then see what's left and what the Senate does, and then pass the bits and pieces if the subcommittee wishes. Any other questions?
If you don't mind, Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
582 would be very problematic in many ways. It would impact our trust agreement. Delegate Healy's bill, as was mentioned by Patrick, is very similar to the bill that had a sunset on it. And last year, I don't know, it didn't, they were supposed to extend the sunset. There were 2 or 3 bills in to extend the sunset. None of those passed for various reasons. And it was a good customer service initiative. Anytime that we can claw them back from CCU to help the customer, it helps us and it helps the customer. So I'll be honest with you, we're in favor of Delegate Healy's bill. Again, I think the other one just goes way too far in many respects, and would impact our trust agreement.
Okay, well, there's nothing precluding us from passing Delegate Healy's bill and then passing some version of the other bill that doesn't impact. I know in the Senate, they said they've removed some of those big concerns. Delegate Love, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jim, you said you had a problem with 582. Do you have a problem with its cross-file as amended?
Yeah, we had worked with the sponsor. I worked with the sponsor even back around the holidays, and we were trying to work together. I basically told him, I said, tell us where you want to be and I'll help you get there. And that's how we try to operate. But it ended up not being something that we could support because of some of the trust agreement issues. We were still trying to work the legislative process, even though they put it in. And we anticipate to continue to work on that process, because the one thing we can't do is let it impact our trust agreement, because it will impact our ability to borrow money. And that's
thank you.
Negative for everybody. And it'll raise tolls quicker. As a matter of fact, we told the sponsor that.
Thank you.
Sure. Good question, though. And thanks for calling me Jim, by the way. I like that.
Okay, any other conversation on Delegate Healy's bill?
Can I move this? Can I move Delegate Healy's bill favorable?
You may, absolutely.
Thank you. I'd like to move it. Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion on Delegate Healy's bill after a first and a second? That would be HB 0038. A further conversation. All those in favor of passing HB 0038 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you.
And just one clarification, Mr. Chair, is we're going to work on Hornberger's bill so that it is not problematic, given Jim and his team's issue with the conflict with, I believe they said their compact.
Yeah, the bonding issue. That's exactly. I think that's exactly right, Delegate Boyce. We'll see what the Senate version does, and then we'll come back and kind of readdress all the pieces and see what's still necessary and what we can move, and we'll just bob and weave and move in that direction.
Well, Patrick's great to work with, so we enjoy working with him. I mean, I don't have to tell you how good he is. So
okay,
we'll be happy to work with him.
I think that's it for the Easy Pass stuff, right, Patrick? Am I missing anything?
No, you still have House Bill 175.
Crim's bill.
Yeah, I thought, but we can discuss it. I thought we had originally talked about holding it, but yeah, let's discuss it really quickly and see where that goes. Yeah, House Bill 175, unpaid video tolls. Okay, so this is this is for video tolls. Supposed to. Go ahead.
This Jim can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this also goes to the trust issues.
It absolutely does. This is a killer bill for us, trust-wise.
Yeah, the trust requires that we prohibit free passage.
Yeah.
And while our civil penalty waiver program waives civil penalties, it is contingent upon payment of the tolls.
Right.
While this just has a blanket toll waiver, which would, as Jim mentioned, immediately trigger a major bonding issue.
Immediately.
And it's also got an initial fiscal note of 2.6 million.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Move on favorable.
Why don't we see if we can contact Delegate Crim and see if she can might be interested in withdrawing it.
I think that would be a proper course of action.
So can I ask one just follow-up question to that?
Absolutely, please, Delegate Boyce.
Secretary. So it says 70% of the delinquent video tolls. If the percentage was lower
Yeah.
Would that make a difference, or is it that it's just none at all? It's just zero option?
Yeah, it's zero option, to be
Okay,
honest with you,
that's fair.
because it's tolls.
Got it.
Tolls.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's important. And I want to thank you both, Secretary Ports, as well as Acting Secretary Pines, for coming in and explaining this. The bonding issue has been something that we have wrestled with off and on in this subcommittee for years now, because often, we have our fellow delegates that put in these bills and they don't, it's hard unless you're on the subcommittee to understand how delicate the fact that we're, I think, one of 11 states with the bonding, the low bonding rates we have now, and this could jeopardize that, which could spiral into all kinds of other issues that we really don't want to get into.
And if I could, I want to, Jim and I both know this, because we know that this authority has been used over and over again to build wonderful things for the state of Maryland. Seagirt was built with bonding authority, with this bonding authority, because we didn't need to do any particular highway, bridges, tunnels at that time. So that having the opportunity to use this money for other things is really important.
Well, I'm glad that the subcommittee's got that. Delegate Boyce, I see your hand up. Is that left over, or did you have something else?
Yeah, no, I had one more. Is there any part of Delegate Crim's bill that is work withable? Because if not, I do want to check in with her, but if there's anything that's salvageable, I'd love to salvage it. If not, then we should talk to the delegate, and then maybe the next committee talk about Delegate Parrott's kind of motion to move unfavorable.
That would be my preference, but
If that was a question for MDTA, this bill is attempting to do a lot of similar things to Delegate Hornberger's bill that's cross-filed in the Senate. And as Jim mentioned, that still has its own issues. However, there's been a lot more work on that with the Senate bill's sponsor, to where this bill is way off the mark relative to what we could tolerate and not have a major bonding issue. To answer your question directly, frankly, it's not salvageable unless you're trying to really hurt MDTA.
okay, let's do this. I would like to, Delegate Parrott, if it's okay with you, I would like to give the sponsor, there's a big backstory here, but I'd like to give the sponsor the opportunity to withdraw the.
Yeah, I'll withdraw the motion so we can do that.
Okay, thank you, Delegate Parrott. So we will hold Delegate Crim's bill, and we're also holding Hornberger's bill as well. I know. I'm just going to put that in my notes until we can kind of figure that piece out in the next week. And I think that's it for Easy Pass at the moment.
Well, and we're going to work on Delegate Foley's bill too, though, right?
Yep. We're going to work on, we have
Okay.
an outline of what we want to do on Delegate Foley's bill. We'll get
Correct.
that right.
Correct.
We'll go back.
And look, Mr. Chairman, I can't stress enough, we will always be there to be, of value to you when you have these questions. We appreciate the legislative process. As a former legislator, I do. And we're always there to be, some help in any respect that you need. And again, we work very well with Patrick. So anytime you have questions, please ask.
Okay, thank you. And I would also encourage, I know this is touchy, but whenever we have bill hearings, whenever you can weigh in at the bill hearing, it just helps all of our members have a much better idea of what's going on. It's really, really helpful. And I know that's not always the case with all the subject matter in our committee, but thank you very much.
Okay.
All right.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.
Good night.
All right, my wonderful members of the subcommittee, we just handled a bunch of really big, a lot of really big policy. So we have about another 3 or 4 bills that aren't, I think we should be able to get through quickly and then let everybody go. I want to thank everybody. I know it's 7 o'clock, so let's jam through and get some bills out, and then we'll all sleep better and I have less work later. Okay, so Patrick, I'm thinking HB 206, Delegate Moon's bill, vehicle laws, license permits, prohibited acts. I know that Can you just give that a quick once over for the committee? I think everybody's familiar with it, but.
Yeah.
206.
Excuse me. Okay, this bill came in and it repeals some language that says a person may not do any act forbidden or fail to perform any act required by, this is current law language, by the way. Required by this title. So basically what it's doing, and because it has penalties of jail time of 2 months and $500, it's actually increasing the penalties for everything in Title 13, I think it is. 16, excuse me, driver's licensing. And, you know, judges don't buy it. They think it's too vague. That's what the sponsor said. I think he's right. They said there was 1,800 charges under this last year, 1 conviction.
What's the bill number again? I'm sorry.
House Bill
206.
206.
206.
Yeah. Delegate Moon.
So
Got it.
his bill as drafted just repeals this. Now MVA has come to us and said, well, there's one provision that we need this for. And that is for when someone basically cheats on a driving test, whether it's the written test, the road test, or medical tests. Apparently people switch out. And have some other people take their medical tests or their eye tests or something. So this bill, instead of having the big, broad, vague prohibition, narrows it to just cheating on the tests, which apparently they currently do use as the charging statute for that particular violation. So that's what the amendment does anyway. And April's here to provide any insights she might have.
So we have that amendment and then we have the bill. Is there any conversation? Let's first have conversation on the amendment. Is there any? Oh, Delegate Love, thank you.
Move the amendment.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second, okay. Any conversation on the amendment?
Yeah,
All right. All those in favor of the amendment?
I have some, I'm
signify by
sorry.
saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions on the amendment? Motion carries, amendment carries.
Mr. Chair, hang on one sec. Delegate Healy, were you trying to?
I was trying to say something. I don't know if you could
Okay.
hear me.
Oh, you could put your hand up, otherwise.
Yeah,
you get
I
lost.
was just, I was not quick enough, that's all.
Okay,
The question is with the, now it's with the amendment. So the question was on the amendments before, so as part of the bill, I just wanted to make sure that we're not going to run into issues with the Judiciary Committee. Because if this goes into jail time and such, if we need to make sure that they're not going to go after us on the floor with it, that's all.
That's a good question, and it's always something that's a concern. But in this particular case, we're taking a provision that is really broad and vague and already has the jail time and narrowing it down to one of the component parts. So this already has jail time as a penalty.
Okay. Okay.
with that
Taking away
said,
some other-
also Delegate Healy, I would also add that the sponsor of the bill is the vice chair of that committee. Not that that means everything, but it's a little piece.
Well, we've amended his bill. Will
He
be
knows
amended?
it.
He's
Oh, okay.
aware of it, and he's keeping 99.9% of what he wanted. It's just one little.
Okay.
so.
Then I'm
He
fine if they're
actually-
fine.
He specifically said at the hearing, listen to MVA, talk with MVA, and do what you think is best.
Okay, I'm all set then.
Okay, great. So we are on the bill itself. So in order to have discussion, we should have a first and a second.
I think Delegate Parrott has a question. He has his hand up.
Delegate Parrott?
Yeah, my question is, are we saying that if you cheat on the learner's permit test, you could go to jail? So like you have your iPhone sitting there and you cheat, you can go to jail?
In theory, yeah, it's current law.
It's already current law.
Really?
I mean, that sounds ridiculous.
I'm sorry, Delegate Parrott, what?
Yeah, you heard it. I heard it. We all heard it.
I mean, you have these kids that are 16 years old on an iPhone, I don't know, maybe they have some question, they look it up and they get caught and they could go to jail. That doesn't make any sense.
I just want to
You're
add.
right, I'm on the,
Just for discussion, I just want to chime in. The convictions are not normally jail time. The only reason that we even discussed keeping it on, we do not support any type of penalties. Of course, that is up to the legislator, but the jail time being involved, the only type of jail time that is actually implemented for these types of violations is like huge scandals. So they would go around like with CDL testing. They had like Bluetooth in their ear. If they're caught multiple times, I mean, there's not 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds going to jail for cheating on a driving exam, but just to have that there for those multiple charges.
Understood.
Thank you.
Understood.
Delegate Parrott, does that?
No,
surprise you?
I guess I don't like current law if that's current law, because I mean, I can see that, sure. If we were specific on the driver's test, but the learner's permit test, I mean, that's so easy anyway. I don't.
So what would
Okay.
you recommend, Delegate Parrott, if a 16-year-old takes their iPhone and cheats while they're working on their driver's license test or learner permits test? What would you recommend?
Small fine and send them home, and they have to reschedule it.
I would,
Don't let them get a license until they're 18.
yeah, I would, yeah. If you're 16, you lose the opportunity. Driving is a privilege, not a right.
That's right, Virginia.
I'm not an expert in this, but wouldn't a 16-year-old go to juvenile court?
Oh,
That's right.
Yeah.
oh, hey, hey.
I
Delegate Parrott, you raise an excellent point.
It does. I mean, I could see literally losing the, like your, the penalty is losing the opportunity to take the learner's permit and not being able to, you know, apply for what, like 2 years or something like that. Something that says like, you know, spend 2 years studying.
No
question is,
cheating.
we would need
No
an
more
amendment.
cheating. Got lots of time to study now.
The question for the subcommittee, and I guess for Patrick is, and for April, I guess we would have to construct an amendment that specifically deals with, you know, based on what you said, April, and based on what everybody else is saying, we would have to construct a specific amendment that dealt specifically with minors and or 16-year-olds getting learners permits or just minors in general in order, and then have a separate penalty for them. Is this what we're talking about doing?
Yeah, I'd like that. Although not just for minors. I don't know. Even if it's a 23-year-old, I don't know. I agree with the whole like delay at least a year before they could take the test again.
Patrick, what are your thoughts if we did that? I mean, I would say 2 years, not a year. If you're going to cheat on a test,
So
and
that's generally not the type of penalty we would have in the code.
I
mean,
think it works more with the young people.
is that more a
minor-
regulation that MVA would issue? Would that be more in regulation than it would be in statute, Patrick? Like what would, traditionally speaking, we do?
Well, I don't know of anywhere in the code where they say you can't come back and take your driver's test unless you're suspended or revoked.
Which they can't because they don't have a driver's license. to
Revoked
begin
would be the
with.
ones that would have to come back for a test, but I mean, you could just take off the jail time.
And then what? What would the penalty
I mean,
be?
some of these violations in this section just have the fine.
What would the
Okay.
fine be?
What's that?
What would the fine be?
Maximum 500. The standard base fine in the motor vehicle code.
That'd be up to the judge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the judges will set the prepaid penalty.
Delegate Foley, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so it looks like there is on line 17, subsection 3, it says a person convicted of a violation of subsection, it lists a bunch of them, right? Is subject to a fine not exceeding $500. You could add that in there, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So then they would be subject to a fine of $500. If you're a kid and you get caught and you get a fine of $500 and you're trying to get a learner's permit, your parents are going to be pretty pissed off at you.
Well, one, yeah.
So
But
then the only issue that I would have, or the only concern that I think would be left, April, to your point, what if this is a 24-year-old or 25-year-old, somebody that's trying to game the system? Is $500 enough of a disincentive to address it, or what are your thoughts? April?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? You broke up a little bit.
I said, so if we were to proceed with what we just talked about, with just making it a $500 fine,
Right.
what would that do to discourage, or how would that be a disincentive to those folks that aren't the 15 or 16-year-old learner's permit, but the 23 or 24-year-old cheating on their CDL or something like that? Would that be enough disincentive, or where would you fall in that?
Well, if you look also on line 24 and 25, it also gives a 12 points on your license. That's also a deterrent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so between the two of those, you would be satisfied?
Yes.
Okay, I see Delegate Jacobs.
Yeah, and I'm happy with both those. 12 points, you lose your license. But do we have any statistics on how many people were sentenced to jail under these offenses?
I thought we did, right, Patrick? It's very, 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 very small.
I think you said in the beginning, like one, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was, this
The catch-all.
charge isn't used that much. Usually the more specific charge is used, but only when convicted.
But I'm saying that this is historically is not where jail time is instituted anyway.
Probably not.
I mean, it's very rare, is what
1700.
I'm saying.
For the reasons that April
Patrick,
said, probably not.
Right,
Delegate,
Patrick, wasn't it like 1,700 charges or something like that?
Yeah, that's the sponsor cited 1,800 charges, one conviction.
Right. So I don't see, I'd be in favor of taking the imprisonment out personally.
Okay. Delegate Boyce, is your hand left, or do you?
It's up, and I missed April's response, because I guess the question I was going to ask is, could in regulation you decide that a person found cheating otherwise could not sit for a test for X amount of years or whatever it is?
Well, don't forget, we've got all these bills where we're trying to get people licensed and to work and everything.
That's true. That's true.
We got to stay consistent here as a subcommittee.
Yeah, but I mean.
No, what
April, to your
I hear
point,
you.
to-
What
to
I'm
Regina,
asking is that what we're asking, could it be done in regulation versus legislatively?
I doubt it.
I would have to go ask my team. It's a good question. We did not even discuss anything like that. We are okay with the fine and the 12 points with your license being taken away. Delegate Jake, I'm sorry, Delegate Boyce, if you have a follow-up question on that.
No, I mean, on one hand, like if you're running a ring where you're just getting folks licenses and, those things happen where you're getting people to, you're cheating through the process. Look, people find a way to get over on everything. So that's one thing. But if it's like I'm an eager kid and I'm just like not applying myself and I decide to cheat, I guess the concern I think now with the committee is it a possibility that some kid or some 24-year-old who's trying to get a learner's permit, although do you get a learner's permit at 24?
I would say CDL. I'd say they're working on something more complicated like a CDL.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I see the point, but I guess if it never happens, I'd be okay moving forward. But if it's a possibility, I do feel uncomfortable, if that makes sense.
Well,
I understand. When I spoke with our investigators that were dealing with this issue, they were pointing out the crew that had the Bluetooth in their ears that they're charging. They never once mentioned that they were charging the 15-year-old or 16-year-old, or when they're there for their CDL. Like you said, they have they even had like someone had invisible ink written on their arm, and the pen they were using had a light that showed it. Like it's crazy. It's crazy what the lengths they'll go to. But like you said, it's always possible to try to, get around something. I can go back to the investigators if that would make you feel more comfortable, just to confirm how many cases are charged, what are the age, the ages that you are charging, what type of situation, and I can follow up with the committee. I do not mind at all.
Well, let me ask this. Are we on the, and Delegate Boyce, if you want to do that, I'm certain we can hold the bill and do it that way. The other issue, the other thing that's before us, which I think we're very close on, is just removing the jail time and just making it a $500 and 12 points and just being done and moving on. So the question is,
why don't we do that? I don't know if we want to check with sponsor, but is that something, Delegate Parrott, where you would support removing incarceration altogether, keeping the fine and the points?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
And April, you said earlier, just 2 or 3 minutes ago, that will fulfill your issues if we just kept those pieces. We could remove incarceration, but just keep the 12 points and the $500 fine. Is that good? Still good for you, right?
Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
So move.
Okay. So Patrick, do we need to do anything or just write up that amendment and we're good?
Yeah, you can vote on concepts. You have most of the amendment in front of you. I just have to change that Delegate Foley pointed out.
Okay, so there is a first and a second on the amendment. And just to be clear, I'm sorry.
Oh, wait a minute. Can we clarify the amendment?
That's what I'm going to do.
Oh, sorry.
That's what I'm going to do. So we have a first and a second on the amendment, and the amendment leaves in statute the 500 up to a $500 fine and leaves in up to 12 points, but removes any incarcerability. Is that what I'm hearing? Want to make sure we have that right.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick?
Yes.
Okay. So therein lies the amendment. Do we need to do anything with the, okay, so that's.
And Delegate Healy moved those amendments, right?
Yep.
Yes, I did.
I'll second them.
Thank you. Okay, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Patrick, we don't need to do anything with the original amendment we passed, do we? The first amendment that we passed, or are we clean?
I just have to tweak it. It's fine.
Okay, so we don't need to, okay, so we're good. Okay, so then we're on the bill on.
Move the bill as amended.
Great.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Good job, Neil. Look at you.
No, see what happens when you take that aluminum tin thing off your head? God, it's awesome. Don't put that thing back on, leave it off.
We're looking forward to you to be a leader in more removing incarceration of ridiculous things, sir.
Let's
Yeah, we
finish
did a
up
good
with
thing.
With that, thank you, everyone.
let's finish up with one last bill and then we'll call it a night. We have others on here, but you guys have done, all of you, I can't thank you. You've really dug in and I really appreciate it. Last bill was Delegate Polakovich Carr, HB 254. Patrick, as I understand it, we have removed the fiscal note issues. We removed everything. Can you talk a little bit about it? Because I think we're pretty close here.
Well, yeah, the bill requires State Highway Administration to review, infrastructure reviews after fatal incidents, and identify appropriate corrective actions and crash reduction countermeasures consistent with federal law and Vision Zero, which is what they already do and which is required by federal law, the stimulus, I think it was. And we did run this by SHA and they said that, yeah, the cost of the remaining bill is insignificant and it requires reporting and placing of these reviews online so that citizens, locals, delegates can get them. That was one of the big issues at the hearing was the inability to get these infrastructure reviews.
I have a question about that. Wouldn't the State Highway be concerned about liability? I did these reviews. So I worked for the State Highway. I went out to fatal crashes. I did in-depth reporting. And I wasn't concerned this was going to be out in the public. This was our report so that they could actually make corrective actions. I'm concerned if we throw it out in the public, you might not get engineers being totally truthful to protect the state highway in the future court case.
Really?
Does State Highway have immunity?
No, we've been sued successfully many times, even when I was there. I wasn't
What-
involved in any of those court cases, thankfully, but
Right.
I
so-
hadn't even thought of that issue, but that is, and I just wanted to clarify on the fiscal note, because we did communicate with Delegate Flakovich-Carr's office on her addition to, well, on all the amendments, but then the addition at the very end involving the publication of the review required by a section of the IJ, I believe. There is still a fiscal impact of the requirements of the bill. We clarify with her that the last section about the publication of the IJA information or whatever report that is required under that, that's an insignificant impact, but we still do have, there is still a fiscal impact with the rest of the bill and the reporting requirements. But I never thought of that issue that Delegate Parrott just brought up, but that's a good point.
So my understanding is that most of that fiscal impact was relieved. Are you saying that's not so? And if so, what is that fiscal impact now?
I would have to go back to State Highway and figure out exactly what the number is. But I don't think that just because we removed the specific requirements that were enumerated under B2, I mean, we still have to do the review. And so even though we're not doing those specific requirements, the fiscal note, I believe, still stands.
Patrick, do you have
She had
any-
asked if the last section would add anything else or what the cost of that was. And we said that there wasn't additional impact.
No,
For section
didn't your
2.
testimony say that you're already doing these?
We do, yeah, we do some review, or we do a review, but we didn't do everything that was enumerated in, or we didn't, in every review, we don't touch on all the requirements that were listed under B2 specifically. Because we do it by case, we look at each accident, and as we noted in our letter, pedestrian and bicycle fatalities, when you look at those accidents, there's so many different, things and factors that go into that beyond just infrastructure. So the level of review is different, I think, for each
Case is case specific.
right.
Patrick, I thought the letter that we had cleared that up, or are we saying it doesn't now? Is that what we're getting at?
Well, the fiscal note was, what was it, like $40,000 for each review, something like that? And it was 1.5 million?
Originally,
Originally, correct.
I mean, what I can say is that we have heard loud and clear from the legislature that, transparency, we want to make sure that these reviews that we're doing, the SHA is conducting, are transparent and are, the information is available, when the reviews are completed. And so we are working towards that. Whether or not this bill is passed, we are committed to doing that.
And it was $15,000 per review, according to the fiscal note.
Can I ask,
Yes, Delegate Healy.
are you committed to putting this on the website too?
Yes.
Okay.
so let me ask you a question then. Why don't you put all the crash data on the website too?
We can do that. I think we were
No,
working.
you don't. You're protected by federal highway laws. You have to look at every single intersection in the entire state of how many crashes occurred. They have crash data and they have section crash data, and they don't release any of it unless it's for a traffic engineering study. You can't get it to use it in court because the state's protected, and that's why they're protected, so they'll make sure they keep the data properly. So it doesn't make sense to me that you would put this kind of thing out on a website. I mean, as an engineer, I see the problems. Maybe you should take this back to the lawyers at the MDOT so they can take a look at this.
Yeah, let me take it back to SHA and talk with them. I know Mitch and Nicole were, unfortunately couldn't be on. So,
Laura, while you're doing that piece, that Delegate Parrott, could you please re-review, because my understanding is we did receive a letter that eliminates most of the fiscal note issues. So I I'd like you to maybe put together some kind of breakdown, because my understanding was most of the fiscal note concerns went away with the amendments from Delegate Palakovich Carr.
Yeah, I'm not at all concerned about the fiscal note.
I know you're not, which is why I'm like, we're asking for her to do your piece, and I'm asking her to do my piece or Delegate Palakovich Carr's piece, two different pieces.
Understood.
Okay, just I wanted a breakout of what that looks like, because that wasn't my understanding before coming into this meeting today. My understanding was that was resolved. So if it's not
Understood.
resolved, I need to be able to report back to Delegate Palakovich Carr what the concerns are, so that if there's further amending that needs to be done or something along those lines. Thank you very much, Pilar.
Not a problem.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions on this bill? Otherwise, I'm going to say thank you very much to our wonderful members, and we're going to call it a night, let everybody go home.